Greetings hobbyists, this is addons of Vol, and in this video we're going to be making a mechanical leg. So this was requested after I did a video on making a small scale mechanical insect, and I got a few requests of a couple of bits being in a bit more detail, and wanting to make a larger version of this to be on basically about a 100mm base. I thought I'd record the process, but this time talking through what I'm doing. Now this video is going to be pretty much as I work. I don't really sketch things in advance, I just see how they're going and make changes. So you will see that in this, and there will be a little bit of back and forth. So because of this is going to be quite a long video, and it's quite a complex object, but hopefully that's going to be useful to people. So I do have this 100mm base here, so I can use that as a kind of reference in terms of size, and I'm just going to bring in a cube and we'll start modelling from there. Now, in terms of size, I think I have an idea about what I want, so let's end to bring out the end panel and let's change some sizes. So on the Z-axis, let's go for somewhere in the region of 30. So this is in millimeters, and then I think I want the width of that around 7mm, and then maybe, let's have a look at 7. Okay, let's go with there for now. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to try and model this in a particularly good position, because I want to make it easier for myself to actually model this, and most things are going to be in those sort of 90-degree angles. So if I was trying to model it like this, which is where it's probably going to be, I'm just going to have to fiddle around with lots of things. It's not going to be difficult because we're not going to apply the rotation, but it just gets a little tedious, so there's no reason not to model like this. And then rig this up in some way later so that we can rotate it around and it's easier to modify. So let's start with the basic shape. I want this to actually be something that mimics a little bit between the Chaos version of a Venom Crawler, which is this sort of demonic walker thing, but I want this to actually be from a Mechanicum group before they turned to Chaos, or even if they didn't turn to Chaos, so almost like what this was originally like. So a lot of this architecture is going to be more based on a stereotypical knight and their sort of leg structure. So it's going to be, hopefully, a bit of an interesting halfway house between the two. So let's just start with cutting some bits out, and I'm going to use Boxcutter for this, and let's get rid of some sort of segment around there, I think, for now. That's going to be the two bits of this. I'm probably going to change this, but that's what's great about Boxcutter. It's all non-destructive, so I can just ever scroll that and then G and then let's say move that up or whatever I want. So really useful to use Boxcutter for things like this. There is a link in the description to a lot of videos on Boxcutter and to Boxcutter and HardOps itself, but you could just always use a normal Boolean modifier, and that's effectively what this is doing. Now I want to sort of point to this, but I want to flow a little bit more nicely. So let's D to bring out the circle cutter, and let's up that to 64. I think that should be enough. You'll notice that it doesn't highlight this here, but it tells you what it's doing up there. And then I'm just going to do something like that. I'm paying attention to the width I want it. I think I want it somewhere around there. And then I'm going to hold down Shift, and then I'm going to click, drag through, and then hold down Shift so it's still there. And then I can just S and scale that up on the Z axis. So I'm pressing down Z. So somewhere around there, except for I don't quite like this extreme edge. So let's just G, move that off to the side, and then S and X, and somewhere there-ish. Maybe a little bit further down. Yeah, let's go with that for now. Again, we can always change it. Now I want this to have a more sweeping edge to it, something a bit like that. And I could use a cutter for that, but it's probably going to be a little bit annoying. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into edge mode. Notice we've still got the whole object. So I'm going to Control and R to put in an edge, drag it down to approximately halfway. So about there. Control and B, drag that up to where I want it, and then I'm just going to scroll up to put in, well, quite a lot of vertices, so I want this nice and smooth. Let's go for 64, somewhere about there. And I'm just making sure that this bottom bit is about the same size, so somewhere about there. Then vertex mode, let's Shift and Z, select those vertices, and then I'm going to press O to bring in my proportional editing, though actually this method isn't going to work. Let's change that to sharp. You can, if you press Shift and O, also bring this up this way. So O and Shift and O are fine, but to be honest, because O's on the other side of the keyboard, most of the time I just come up here. It's actually quicker. So let's G and then Y, or no, X, and then scroll up until we get this sort of curved edge that we want. Do notice it's actually affecting the vertices on the right hand side as well, but that's not a problem because they're being cut out. So let's go to about there, and I think that looks about okay. I might fill around with this. Let's go to about there. Cool, pretty happy with that. Now I also want this to have a bit more of a point from this side, so again, Alt and W, D, and then we'll bring in our Engon cutter, start from about there. Can't really see this red line very clearly, so I apologize about that. So there, here, and then again, Shift, and then triple click, and then I'm just going to click there, Alt and X, and then mirror that to the other side. That's using hard ops. So let's H for that. So yeah, pretty happy. Again, I can always change the angles of these if I want to later. In fact, I might change the thickness of this later. We'll have a think about that. So the reason I've separated this is I want there to be some sort of shock absorbance from when it hits down each time it walks. So we're going to put some pistons in here. So let's just do that now. So I'm going to Shift and A, mesh, and bring in a cylinder. Let's up that to 128 vertices so it's nice and round. Let's bring that up here, and then let's S and Z so we get it to about the right height. So there, let's come into side view, and then let's S and Shift and Z and get that to about the right size, somewhere around there, I think. So this is going to be the main one. So let's move that back a little bit, and then I'm going to Shift and D, and I want another one here, but this is going to be a lot thinner. So S and Shift and Z, and we'll do something like that. Let's have a look. Then G and Y. Let's have that over here, and then let's Alt and X to mirror that onto the other side. I think that should be a bit thicker. So S, Shift and Z, and then we'll do something about there. Yeah, let's have a look at that. This might be a bit tightly packed in. I kind of want a gap between these, so let's actually just scale that one down slightly, and then same for those. Okay, I think that looks nicer. I want this gap between them so you can see from distance that these are separate pistons, so I might even exaggerate that slightly more later. Right, so let's go into edge mode, Control and R, and then we're just going to bring that to about there. In fact, if I want to keep this all really, really tight and the same, I'm actually going to select this and Control and J and join it to that one. You'll notice that I've had to do it that way round, because otherwise if I come here and join it to that one, we're going to get some issues with the mirror disappearing. So that one, then there, Control and J, and now we've got one object. And now I can go into edge mode, and then what I'm going to do is press 2. That's because I've got machine tools, so you can just use K for the knife tool. Again, it's over the other side of the keyboard. I'm just being lazy. Click and go through. I'm going to press X to lock it to the X axis. I'm going to press C to have cut through, and then click, and then enter. And then we've got that going through there for both sides. And then I'll do a similar thing on the top, but I'm going to want it larger on the top because this is sort of the main body of the piston. So 2, click, X, C, click, enter. Right, so now that we've got that, I can go into face mode, W to come out, Boxcutter, select all of those faces, and now I can just press Q and Alt click EM macro, and then that's going to allow me to bring those out to the same size. Let's actually undo that. Let's try that a bit more, just from a better angle. Let's go to about there, I think. Let's turn off proportional editing, otherwise that's going to cause me some sort of problem later. And then we'll do exactly the same thing for the top faces, except for we want these to be wider still. So Q, Alt E and macro for hard ops, and let's go for something a bit like that. So that's going to be where our pistons come from. Do I want these to be further down? Let's just G and Z that down to about there. I'll see how I feel about that. But anyway, regardless of that, it's much easier because these are all one object, so I can keep everything exactly the same. If I decide later on that I want to actually change one of these heights, I can do, but this just makes everything much, much simpler to keep uniform. So I can always just come into here and then let's select those and then G and Z that up if I do decide that I want these at different heights. Does that look nicer? Maybe that does look a little bit nicer. Cool, let's go with that. But either way, joining everything together is a much quicker way of making sure all of your depths there are exactly the same. So just a little bit of a shortcut and saves a little bit of time. So let's start having a look at how this is going to join onto the other next segment of the leg. Now, obviously we've got a lot more detailing and things to do here, but it seems a good point to put that in. So let's Shift A, mesh, and then cylinder. 128 seems fine for vertices, so let's R and X, so 90. So let's get this to approximately where I want it. I think somewhere here, let's just scale that up to be sort of most of the leg width. Somewhere around there, I think will look nice. And then let's S and Y to get that barely wider. So hardly anything in it. It's going to be nice and subtle in terms of its overall profile, but we are going to cut out a section of this and sort of deal with it that way. So I think somewhere around there will look good. Again, we can always fiddle around with this, and you'll see what I'm doing to fiddle around with this so I can move things. And then to make the cutout, I'm going to Shift and D to duplicate that, S to scale it up a bit more, so somewhere about there. Then I'm just going to go into vertex mode and just grab those vertices, and then G and then X, and then we'll grab those, and then G and Z. Drag that up so we've got something that's going to take most of this top section out, but importantly it's still mimicking this curvature there with a similar distance. And then let's come into side view, and then let's just grab all those, and then G and then Y, and bring that to, let's say, about there. Alt and X across to the other side, and then click, Shift click, Control and minus, and then we've got that there. So we've got this nice sort of inset for where this is. And if I want to change that, is that a bit thick? Maybe. Let's G and then Y and bring that to about there. I'm actually, now that I've got the general size, I'm going to H to hide this base just so that it's easier to see. And yeah, I think that's probably going to be about right. Let's just come into edge mode, select that edge, and then I'm going to Control and B and just bring in a slight little bevel there. So just a chamfer, nothing too big. Let's go about there, just so it looks a little bit nicer at the top. So actually, I think I'm going to undo that, and then let's come into edge mode, and then I'm going to Control and R there, and then I'm just going to go into face mode, and let's E that out to there, because I think I want this bit cut off as well. Oops, went back a little far, there we go. And then I'll edge mode, and then select that edge, and that edge there. Oops. Control and B. Yeah, let's go with that. Cool. So, pretty happy with how that's going. Again, we can always change this if I want to change thickness. Actually, I did go back too far, so let's Q and then ever scroll and then G and Y that out. So let's go to about there instead. I think that's going to look interesting. Do I like this bevel? No, I don't think I do. So let's just go back to that. And then once again, yeah, G and then Y and bring that out to somewhere about there. Cool. Right, so we've got that detailing. I think we're just going to add some quick detailing onto this. So face mode, then I to inset it, E to bring it in, I to inset a little bit more, E to bring it out, but this time a little bit further, maybe not that far. And then let's apply the scale, so Control and A and scale, and then edge mode, and then Control and B on that edge to just add this nice rounded edge there. 16 on the vertex count. Maybe that needs scaling out a little bit. Let's Shift and Y to keep that on those axes. Right, let's go to about there. Cool. Yeah, pretty happy with that. I think that'll look nice. Now we only have that on one side, so I'm just going to go into vertex mode, Alt and X, and symmetrize that over to the other side. You could use a mirror, but I know that that's what I want, and that's using Mesh Machine. Let's add the sort of stereotypical detailing that goes in the middle of here. So actually, I think I need face, and then I to inset that even further, E to extrude that out, and then let's Control and B, and that's just going to get a chamfer, something like that. And then again, Alt and X to the other side. So now I've got it on the other side as well. And then we'll just add a little bit more detailing. So let's Mesh and Cube. I'm going to click on that, Alt and A to bring it to it. That's using Align with Machine Tools. Let's S and Z that down to there, I think. And then let's G and then Y that here. In fact, actually, I'm just going to S and scale it on the Y axis to about there. Apply the scale, and then let's go into edge mode and select all of those edges. In fact, A, because it's every edge, and then just add again a nice slight chamfer to those. Yep, and then Shift and D, R, and then 90. Cool, yeah, that should do for the detailing. Let's select that, and then that one, and then Control and P and parent it so that if we move this around, it's going to move the other bits as well. Yeah, that's cool. Now, looking at this I think the shading's a little off. Let's just have a quick look at the face. Yep, okay, I must have scaled that in the wrong direction. So let's select that and that. Go into vertex mode, A, Shift and N, and then sort that out. And we can turn face orientation off. Cool. So that's looking about right. In fact, I think we'll need some rivets on that. So let's mesh and then quad sphere. Again, same thing of alternate. Let's select that quad sphere. So there. Let's scale that to 0.8 millimeters. Might even need to be smaller than that. Let's go 0.6 millimeters. And then let's G and then Y, because I know this is perfectly centered at the moment. Let's go to about there. And then it's Q and then mesh tools and radial array. And I only want 4. Let's go with there. And then R, and then let's turn that just 45 to the side. Ooh, maybe I need this a little bit further out. In fact, maybe I need them a bit smaller. So if I want to do this, you'll notice now at the scale it's not correct. It's showing it for everything. So what I need to do is just get rid of that array there. And I can change that to 0.4. And then I'm going to have to fiddle around with the strength of this to put it out to the right place again. About there. And then I can just make that visible again. We've got that there. Cool. Actually, maybe that's a little bit wrong on the strength. Let's go in a little bit more. There we go. Cool. Right, happy with that now. Though I just realised I've scaled everything there. So let's put that to 0.4 as well. There we go. Cool. So that's looking good. Let's hide that empty. And then that one we will need to mirror to the other side. So let's do that. And then we're just going to, again, Control and P and parent that. So that, again, if we move it, it all moves together. Actually, let's do that for this section as well. So let's Shift and D. So we've got another copy there. Let's up the strength to about there. And then we want to up the count. Why is that not working? Okay, whatever. Let's just delete all. And then we can just move this around anyway. So that's G and then Y. Bring it to there. And then once again, Q. Let's come to front view so it's easier to see. So Q, radial array, drag that out. And then let's up that to, that'll look good. 12, maybe 8. No, let's go to something like 6. No, that looks awkward. Let's go to 8. So yeah, something like that. Cool. And then once again, we'll mirror that. And then parent it. Right, let's carry on with this. So, where do we want to go next? I think I want a bevel on this edge, so let's go with that. Something around there. Yeah. I just realised I turned off edit mode, so that was annoying to look at. So make sure you have those on, otherwise it makes life really tedious. So I think somewhere around there is good, maybe a little larger. So let's change width there. Yeah, maybe something there. Okay, that was using Mesh Machine. And then I actually think this might be a little bit longer than I need it to be. I kind of like the length, but I'm not sure about it completely. In fact, I just think there needs to be something more on the front here. So let's Alt and W, let's D to bring in a box. And then I think I'm going to go somewhere like there. Yeah, drag through. Let's B to add a bevel. And I think we'll go nice and smooth. Somewhere like that. Yeah, I think that's a little bit more interesting. Okay, I think all of this is looking a little bit long at this point, actually. So let's Q and then ever scroll. And then I'm going to go to this. And then let's go into vertex mode. And let's just... W, get rid of Boxcutter, let's G and then Z that down. I think I want that to about there. Let's Q and then ever scroll that, and then G and then Z that down. So that's a bit further down. And then let's go into vertex mode here, and then I'm just going to grab those, and then G and then Z those down. Oops. To, I think, about there. I think that was looking a little bit long. Yeah, let's go with that. And in fact, I might want to move this whole bit down. Okay, let's G and Z that down. Oh, have I parented this to it as well? Like an idiot. So object, parent, and then clear parent for that. Okay, so let's G and Z that down to about there, I think. The problem is we need to leave room for these pistons to theoretically work, but they wouldn't compress all the way in anyway. And then let's Q and then ever scroll to that, vertex mode, and then G and then Z those down to there. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm happy with the proportions of that. I think that looks more interesting. Let's stick with that for now. We can always come back and play with this later. Yeah, let's go with that for now. So let's move on to the middle portion of the leg. So I'm going to bring in a cube, and then I think we want this a little bit offset. I don't want it perfectly centered, so I'm actually going to bring it up to somewhere around there, and then let's scale that up a bit. Somewhere about there. And where do I want this coming to? This is going to need to be a little longer. Maybe something about there. And then this is definitely going to need to be wider. So I'm actually going to go into vertex mode. And then G and then Z those down to about here. Maybe something a bit more substantial. Maybe something like that. Again, we'll fiddle with this. And then I want to cut some sections out of this. So Alt and W. And I think, no, let's D, and then let's go with something like there, and then there, come back. Notice I started this one quite far away because I'm about to bevel this. So let's click there, there, and then B, and then I can bring in this bevel. I don't think I want it that big. Let's go something like that. And then click to confirm. Oh, I just realised I don't have my notifications on. If you have this, if you come here to your Boxcutter menu, you can click on notifications there. I don't care about the size in units, but this will allow you to know what you're doing a little bit better. So if I just start that again, you can see now that if I go here and then go through and then click B, and then I can go to there, and then I can see how many segments I've got. I'm going to go for, let's say, 16 and to about there. So it's really useful having those Boxcutter notifications on, and I think I need this. That's Q and ever scroll that. That's G and Z that to a little bit lower, so it's closer to the bottom of our pivot point. You'll also notice that we've got this nasty bit where it's coming in here, so we'll fix that as well. So let's H that, and then let's just select that, and we're just going to do a really rough sort of cut there to get rid of that. So now I've got this section here, and that's going to allow, maybe this is a bit too far out. What I want is to allow this to pivot down despite being thicker, so I want it to be able to come to here and maybe even flex inwards a bit. So actually let's Q and then ever scroll. What I mean by this is that I want this. Let's select those, and then that, and then R, and then change that to the active element. I want this to be able to rotate like that, but this corner here to not come in and hit this straight away. So I need to have a little bit more movement in that. So let's just G and do something like there, which will allow it to flex in on itself. All right, that's H, and then we've got that there. I quite like this. It looks like it's got this sort of little spindly bit, which is a bit fun. Just in terms of it having a weakness, we are going to have to come in and bevel that, but I'll do that once I'm happy with everything, because I still want, let's get rid of that annotation, to be able to modify things if I change up my mind, at least at this point. And then we're going to need to make it so that obviously it can have this section go into it as well. So we need to Alt and W, and then let's D to get a box, and then let's do something like just a little bit outside, but we need to allow it to move. So let's go there, let's come to there, and then B to bevel. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, I think that will look good. Right, and you can see what I mean here. We've got a slight problem with our box where it doesn't go all the way through. So let's Q and then ever scroll, select that, and then vertex mode, and then I can just W and then G and then X that to over there, so we don't have that problem. Right, H, and we've now got this section pretty good to go. Actually, I'm not sure it needs to be that wide, so let's Q, ever scroll again, and then G, and then X that back. So maybe somewhere about there will leave enough movement. Right, H to hide that, and we've got that section of the leg ready to go. And then we're going to want our other pivot point here, which is going to go to the other section of the leg. Okay, to do that, we're going to have to select those, QQ and Smart Apply, and then we can select everything, and then we can Shift and D, drag that over, and then I can scale that up to something a bit larger. Yeah, I think we're going to have to scale this down, so let's select those, S and Y. That's unfortunately going to affect those because they're linked. So let's unlink these. So let's select that, and object, and then parent. And we're going to clear the parent, but we want to keep the transform, so we want to keep it there. If you don't do that, if I just undo that, if you don't do that, you go to object, parent, and then clear parent. They all appear back over here. So object, parent, and then keep transform, and then we can S and then Y that to somewhere, let's say there, and then I can just select these. In fact, let's go into vertex mode, delete those, and then G, and then Y those back. To there, and then once again mirror those across to the other side. So not too slow to do that, and it just keeps that nice consistency between these different parts. You may even decide that actually you want these rivets to be smaller to match the size over here. That's sort of up to you. Right, what do we want to do now? So I think I want to have a bit of a cutout here. This looks really bulky in this back section. It also doesn't quite match up with a lot of the aesthetic that we typically get for knights, and I want this to go with a knight 4, so let's Alt and W, we'll change D to be an N-gon cutter, and then let's go somewhere like there. Let's keep that angle similar there, and let's go to there, and then drag in, and I think we'll go with there, and then let's B to bevel. But if you notice, if we do that, it only bevels these edges. I actually want to bevel a lot more of this, so I'm actually going to stick with that. And I'm going to Q, ever scroll, and this is quite a nice trick. So I'm going to go to Q and then bevel, and then that will now bevel everything. So let's scroll that up to, let's say 8 segments. Let's get that to a decent size. But then you'll notice that it's caused a problem here. Now actually this is a little bit intentional on my part, and the reason for that is I actually want to have this bevel rotate round so that it comes onto this edge here. So I want it to go round and then there. So what I'm actually going to do is a bit of a trick. I'm going to go into face mode, select that face, so this is just the outer face, and then I'm going to press Alt and N, and I'm going to flip that, and you'll notice that if you flip that outside face, it then projects that bevel outwards, and then you get this really nice shape there, so it's coming out on all angles. Now we are going to get some weird shading here. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this on YouTube, but we get this weird shading that's going on here where it's trying to join, but it's not going to cause any problems. So Q, ever scroll, and then let's select that, and then let's Alt and X that to the other side, and I just want to have a look at this in X-ray mode to see how far this goes in, and yeah, I think that's probably good. Cool. So really nice way of getting these sort of outer bevels quickly, and you've still not applied this boolean, and you can still G and move it around. So it's a really nice little trick there. Okay, that's looking about right at this point for that section. And again, we can still fiddle around with this if we want to change anything. I'm starting to think, actually, let's go to edge mode, that I might want to do something with this edge here and here. Right, let's come here and then let's knife this through there. X, C, and then click and then enter. And then that's going to allow me to select just this edge and just this edge, and Control and B and bevel it without affecting the other part down below while keeping it as one object. I think we'll go somewhere there. Yeah, that's immediately much more interesting. And we probably, once we apply things, we want to put something on here as well. We'll think about that. Okay, so we've got this going on. We've got that bit of the leg. Let's go with the last section that's going to the body. Now, as I said, this would normally be in this sort of pose, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep this perfectly straight so that it's easier to see and manipulate. So let's mesh and bring in a cube. In fact, if I want a lot of similarities between these, it might actually be quicker if I press Q and then operations and come down to uniquify and then press shift and uniquify everything. I get a complete copy of this. Let's X to bring that over there. I can get rid of that. I don't need that, so let's delete that out. Do I want this part, making the shape more interesting? Maybe, but I'll probably change it quite a lot. So let's just come into vertex mode. Let's grab those, and then G, and then Z those down a bit, so we'll go somewhere more there. In fact, if this is going to be going to the body, actually I need to change this quite a lot. Let's actually just rotate that round by 180. Because actually the bit where this is going to, if I rotate it, is going to be coming in. It's going to be somewhere like there, so we actually want that on that portion. So let's select that, go into vertex mode, and then I'm just going to G and, oops, no, X-ray mode, and then G, and then move that somewhere there, because we're going to want this to be a bit bigger. And then let's fiddle around with the proportion of this. So again, let's G and get somewhere similar there. And you can see, by using this uniquify, it makes everything so much faster. Just start fiddling around with things. Let's just bring this into place. I'm going to want that to be further out. Let's G and X that to there. How big do I want this section? Maybe somewhere there. And then actually, I think we're going to need to cut off a section here. So what I'm actually going to do is Shift and D, and then X, and then -1. So now I've got that there. Let's G and then bring that over to maybe there. So we've got this mirrored angle, and then let's come here. We've actually got a lot of these that aren't doing anything at the moment, so let's get rid of that. That one's that. I don't want that there. I do want that one. Don't want that one, and then there's that control a minus. And that doesn't like that. Okay, there must be some issue somewhere. Let's start with face orientation. No, that does seem to be right. Okay, we'll have an investigation into that later if we need to. There'll probably just be some vertex somewhere. And then we're going to come to here, and I want to start mimicking this a little bit. So let's go into vertex mode. Let's G and then X that. And you can see, because this is all not applied, it's so easy to manipulate this. And in fact, if I mirror this over to the other side or symmetrize it, then I can then use these vertices. That's G and X that. And then these, that's G and then X that. Oops, X-ray mode. To do something maybe there. Cool, so now we've got that going on. And this bit here now gives that a little bit more rotation on this leg in terms of what it would be able to actually do. So, do we want that on the bottom? Would this be rotating all the way there? Maybe. So maybe we want that on the bottom as well. So let's Alt and W, and then we'll just do a quick little cut there. I'll do, and then that means I'm probably going to need to Q and then ever scroll and come back to this, and then let's go into vertex mode and let's select that edge there, Control and B, bring that down to 1 so we've got that there, and then let's G and then set that down again to mirror that sort of angle. Yep, is that right? Does this look equal thickness? Let's go with there. Yep, cool. Okay, so happy with that. This might be where this problem's going on in terms of what was causing our issue here, where we had to do a fast. So what I'm actually going to do is get rid of that, and then we'll have a look at this when we apply it and probably do it afterwards. Okay, so let's H to hide that. So we've got that section of our mechanical leg. And the final thing I want is the pivot point. So Shift A, Mesh. Let's bring it in a UV sphere. Let's up that to, let's say, 64. Should be round enough. Bring that to where we want it. Let's scale that up. In fact, is that good enough? Let's just Shift and A, Mesh, and then another UV sphere. And then let's go for 128. That's there. Scale that up. I think I want that about there. And then importantly, to get rid of this horrible bit that's at the top where you've got a load of triangles, all I'm going to do, and also because I want this to have basically a section cut off so it's flatter, what I'm going to do is R and then X and then 90. So now this point is facing us here, and then that means that whatever I cut off, when I come here, let's just select those two and have a look at it this way. So whatever I cut off here is going to leave quads. So if I Alt and W, D, and then box, if I, let's say, cut there, it's going to leave quads in this section. So this will go into quads. I could also actually, instead of just doing that, I could just go into vertex mode and select the vertices at about the point that I want. So let's W, and then let's drag those, and then delete, and then vertices, and then go into edge mode. In fact, no, I'm going to stick with this being done with Boxcutter, because it means that I can fiddle around with it later. So let's go somewhere there, and then Q, and then ever scroll, and then we'll mirror that over to the other side. That's H, and then let's move this G and Z up a little bit so it looks a little bit more centered. Let's have a look at that. Or maybe I do want it further down to about here. Yeah, actually no, that is right. So it looks more aligned there. And then what I could actually do is, if I Q and then ever scroll, and then let's scale that up just a little bit. I think that looks better there. And then I'm going to press Q, and then I'm going to change the Boolean to be an inset. Let's T to change the thickness. Maybe something like that. Now at this point, we're going to do something that's a little funky, especially considering that at the moment this has not been applied, that we're going to have to do bits of this. I actually want this to be inset further into the sphere, almost like you've got this sort of metal outer sphere that's protecting the internal part. And you can do this. So if I Q and then ever scroll and select this, it is a little bit annoying because this is now in wireframe, and you can do it while it's in wireframe. So I'll just sort of demonstrate this part by part. So what I'm going to do is QQ. I've put Smart Apply as a quick favorite, otherwise you can do it in operations and then Smart Apply, and that will apply everything. Then I'm going to isolate this just so I'm looking at this section. Then I want to be able to select only these inside faces, the bit that's on the inside edge here. And that's a little annoying to do, but it's not actually too hard. I'm just going to make sure I'm in edge mode, select sharp edges, which means we've got all of those, then Control and E, and then I'm going to mark seams. So now I've got these seams selected. Now let me just point something out. This is in wireframe mode at the moment, but I'm not in X-ray mode. If I Alt and X and then go to face, because I want to select faces, if you notice all these little dots, they're what allow you to select each face. And if we were to try and do this trick in X-ray mode, it's going to be a problem. So what I'm going to do is actually come out of X-ray mode, even though it looks like it's still in X-ray mode because of the wireframe. Put my mouse over here and then click L, and now I've selected all of those inside faces. Now if I come out of isolation mode and then press E, I can now extrude this into my object a little further. Let's go somewhere about there. And we've got that. So we get this nice outer sort of shell. Now, we haven't got that on the other side, so let's Q and then ever scroll and select this, and then go into vertex mode and then Alt and X and symmetrize that to the other side, and then we've got that on both sides. So yeah, there are definitely ways of doing things like this. You could have attempted to do this in lots of individual bits. So for example, you could have cut a hole through here, made a smaller sphere, put the sphere into it and boolean it. To be fair, that probably would be just as quick, but I like the idea that this is only one Boolean that's going on here, and I can change that as I want. Entirely up to you what you prefer. Yep, and then that's going to allow me to put in things like rivets and anything that I might want there. So what I'm going to do is actually grab these two shapes there and there, Shift and D, and then X. Let's Alt and A to bring those to the same place. We don't want the rotation going on, so we've got these here now. S and Y, and bring those in a little bit. And then we're going to do the same thing. So we'll bring a cylinder in, so mesh and then cylinder. R, X, and then 90. Same thing, Alt and A, S and then Y. come out of vertex array mode to about there, and then let's S and Shift and Y. Let's do something like that. And then again, to match that, let's Control and A and apply the scale, and I'm going to go into edge mode, Control and B, put in a single chamfer there. Yep, and then Alt and X, and over to the other side, so we've got that symmetrized. There we go. Just notice that we've got this problem over here. That's because I haven't symmetrized it. Maybe a mirror would have been better here. Q and then ever scroll, select that, Alt X, put in a mirror, and that'll fix that. So yeah, that might be the better choice. Okay, I think we're looking about done at this point. We've got our mechanical leg. Actually, we're going to add in our bevels here that we want and a little bit more detailing. So let's start having a look at how we're going to apply this. So as always, save at this point. So I use power save for that, and we can start combining everything together. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to confirm all of this. So QQ and then smart apply, and then this was the one with the issues. So we're going to go into vertex mode, and I'm going to press 3 to clean everything, and that was the problem. It was something over here. I think there might be a face in the wrong place. So 3 with machine tools cleanup has sorted that, and then I'm just going to Alt and X that over to the other side. So we've got this there. And then I want to have something a little bit more rounded on these edges, so I'm just going to select there, there, there. Let's go with there, there, and there, and there. And then let's Control and B and scroll up to, I think we had 8. So something like that. Yeah, that looks nice. Going to do the same thing here. In fact, actually, let's undo that. And let's Control and B and then take a note of what we're doing in terms of our thickness or our width. You can see that in the information at the bottom. So let's do a width of about 0.6. So there, and then we'll do the same thing on this one. So let's again QQ and then smart apply, go into edge mode, and then I want that one. Let's go there, 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 and all around. Yep. And then again, we've got a similar issue over here. We'll solve it in the same way. So Control and B, about 0.6. This is going to cause all manner of problems over here. In fact, that's a really bad plan. So actually, let's go back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out which one is our cutter that's here. I think it's that one. So what I'll do is I'm going to apply all of the other ones. Then I'll go into edge mode, select all those edges. Yep, and then Control and B, go to my approximately 0.6, so there, then come into object mode, then I will smart apply that. So we've got that cut out, and then I can vertex mode, Alt and X to that side, and we've got everything good to go. Do I want to bevel this bit? No, I quite like that hard edge. I think that's interesting. Right, so we've got these. So we've got this, and this one pretty much sorted. Let's actually QQ and then smart apply that one as well. So let's have a look at this. I think I want to add something to this outer edge here. So let's QQ and smart apply and then edge click and then control click to there. And then let's come down to the bottom. Let's Control and B there. And then I'm going to Alt and X that to the other side. Yep, that looks cool. Let's stick with that. And then I think I want to do something with this top section as well. Yeah, I think I want to define some of these edges a little bit more. So let's go into vertex mode there and there. Let's 2, so that uses smart edge to join it. You could also just use join. Let's Alt E and then use punch it to push that in. Let's go to about there. And then, oh, doesn't like that. So let's W, there we go. Love punch it. There's a link in the description if you want to have a look at that. And then, do I want to cut that bit out? No, we'll keep that there. And then let's maybe do something similar here to define this edge. Now, I don't think punch it's going to like it for this. So let's go into face mode or edge mode. So actually vertex mode there. Let's 2. I'm going to go to face, select that. And then once that's there, I can go to Q. I guess I'll do this with curve extract. shift click on curve extract and then drag that in a little bit. And then let's go to vertex mode, select that, G, and then Z that up, and then I can control and minus that away. Let's just S and X that slightly. There we go. So again, we're defining this sort of inner section, and it just adds a little bit more to the overall look of this. It just makes it more interesting. I might actually still bring some of this down, so let's G and then Z that down a little bit more. And then let's add something here. So let's go into edge mode and then grab the knife tool. Let's click somewhere there. XC, click, enter, go into face mode. And then actually let's bring those down a little bit. And then face mode. Q, Alt and E in macro. Let's bring that out a little bit. So we've got this little bit of an extra detailing there. Cool. And then maybe a similar thing on these. So edge, knife tool, click, C, X, click, enter, and then face mode, and then grab all those faces and Q and Alt and E in macro. There we go. So again, just a little bit more interesting. Okay, let's just add a little bit more in. Final thing, I'm just going to shift and A, mesh, and then bring in a cube, and then bring that up to about here. And then let's vertex mode, G and then X to about there. And then let's do the same over here. So G and then X that a little bit. Let's move this up. Let's scale that down a little bit. Go into edge mode, select those and those, Control and B, and then round those out. And then Alt W, D, and then circle. Go for about there. Q, and then ever scroll, and then let's there. And actually let's S and scale that on there to about there. Right, cool. So I think at this point we're probably going to call it there. It's been quite a long video covering quite a lot of different techniques and workflow. Obviously this does need posing, but we've actually covered that on an earlier video. I'll put a link in the description. But interestingly, we're not going to pose this using a rig. I'm going to pose it using a trick with machine tools, which for mechanical objects I actually find really powerful. As always, I hope you found that useful. If you did, please do hit that like button. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. And the channel also has a Patreon, so if you want to support the channel any further, there's a link in the description where you get these videos ahead of time, ad-free, various other things as well, including access to the exclusive Discord channel. Have a great day, guys.